I can already hear those comments now. You've got the order all wrong. Nuts and Milk was the first third-party Famicom game, and it was released July 28th. Lode Runner was released 3 days later on July 31st. And I'm not surprised that a lot of people think that. I certainly did until I started doing proper research. You see, every English source on the internet tells you those facts. But those are the English sources. All of the Japanese sources have Nuts and Milk and Lode Runner released on the same day, July 20th. But sources have been wrong before, so let's go to a primary source. Hudson themselves. Lode Runner appears in Hudson Best Collection Volume 2 for the Game Boy Advance, and Nuts and Milk appears in Hudson Best Collection Volume 4 for the Game Boy Advance. And in those games it gives the release date for both of them as July 20th, 1984. So Nuts and Milk was not the sole first third-party Famicom game. So now that we've established that, let's talk about the more interesting of the two, Lode Runner. Developed by Douglas Smith for the Apple II computer originally, Lode Runner is the game that kicked off the action puzzle genre. It was a monster hit on computers, which led to it getting licensed for ports to everything. Nearly simultaneously with the Famicom version, there was an arcade port. Lode Runner has spawned an absolutely enormous series of games. It's actually kind of complicated to know how many Lode Runner games there are because many of the ports feature unique level sets. My estimate is that there's around 40 distinct Lode Runner games. Lode Runner might be the biggest series that flies completely under the radar. Okay, we're over 2 minutes into this video and I haven't even gotten to the game yet, so let's start that. Like the best puzzle games, Lode Runner has simple gameplay that can be expanded into a variety of ways. Here is the runner. Pressing the B button drills a hole on his left. Pressing the A button drills a hole on his right. This only works if there is nothing obstructing him on his left or right. The Lode Runner can climb ladders, shimmy across ropes, and fall a long distance. The Lode Runner's goal is to collect all the gold bars on the stage, at which point a ladder off the top of the screen will appear that he can climb to get out. He's being chased by robots who pursue him in regular, predictable paths. The robots can pick up gold bars as well, and they drop them when they fall. The runner will fall all the way through holes that he drills, but the robots will only fall down one level. Eventually the holes that he drills are filled in, and if a robot's inside one, it gets crushed. Then the robot appears somewhere near the top of the stage again. If you crush enough robots in a stage before collecting the last gold bar, some cherries will appear that you can collect for bonus points. And that's everything you need to know to play Lode Runner. Now here come the complications. The way stages are laid out, you're your own worst enemy in Lode Runner. It can be very easy to drill a hole and find yourself trapped. Should that happen, you can press select to restart the stage. One of the keys to beating Lode Runner stages is opening these paths before you get into those enclosed spaces. The way that the drill works, you'll often have to make stair-step patterns to be able to get everything open. And with those holes closing up in a few seconds, you're on a tight time limit to grab the gold and get out. Another trick that helps is that the runner can cross on top of the robot heads. There's also some trickier bricks. On some stages, some of the bricks aren't actually there and you'll just fall right through them. There's also these solid bricks that you can't drill into at all. The big difference between Famicom Lode Runner and Computer Lode Runner is that Computer Lode Runner restricted the action to a single screen. Every stage in the Famicom Lode Runner is 2 screens wide. The graphics on the Famicom have been stretched. It's easy to see when you compare the levels that have the same layout on both versions. The scrolling on the Famicom isn't the best as it requires you to be very close to the edge of the screen before it moves, but I never really had any problems with running into robots. You're given 5 lives to start, and are given an extra life every time you clear a stage. but it's still really going to be a challenge to get through all 50 stages on just that. That's quite a jump in content, given that the most number of unique stages we've seen in a Famicom game so far is 18 in Golf, and 4 in Donkey Kong Jr. if you don't want to count those holes as individual stages. Lode Runner offers a balm to players who don't want to play all 50 in one sitting. Pressing select at any time brings up a stage selection menu. On top of that, on the stage selection screen, if you hold select and press A or B, it increases or decreases the speed of the game. The 2-player mode is just alternating play. Eventually there will be cooperative play in some Lode Runner games, but that's a long ways off from now. Especially intriguing is the edit mode. This is the first time that a console game has let players make their own stages to challenge their friends with. There was no method to save it though, not even to the data recorder. The edit mode also restricts players to a single screen, similar to the original computer game. Early on, Hudson tried to mimic Nintendo's Famicom packaging. The box is very similar to Nintendo's boxes. The cartridge label has a style that resembles the Pulse line a bit. And even though they had the option to manufacture their own cartridge shells, Hudson chose to package their games in standard Famicom cartridges. Something you might notice on the cartridge, though, because this is a game that Hudson licensed from Broderbund, the cartridge has the trademarked Lode Runner logo on it, rather than just Lode Runner in simple text. As for this game's legacy, well, it was a smash hit. There were 1.1 million copies sold in Japan of Lode Runner, which made it the 28th best-selling Famicom game of all time. Lode Runner did get a re-release with a picture label, and that picture label is actually a bit rare. There was one sequel to it, Championship Lode Runner, which we're going to see pretty soon, actually. The other Lode Runner games on 8-bit Nintendo systems are actually from Irem and are based on their arcade game rather than Hudson's version. I actually think Lode Runner holds up pretty well. Yeah, it looks a little simple, but simple helps when you're dealing with an action puzzle game. I still have fun playing it, and my enjoyment of the game has led me to try to collect more Lode Runner games. Of course, those other Lode Runner games often turn out to be disappointments, but that's game collecting for you. See you tomorrow for the other half of the first third-party game on the Famicom. Try to say that 3 times fast.